into Triple Zeros. I am your host, Josh Buckalter. Follow me on Twitter at Josh G. Buck. Hit up the Facebook page at Clocker Sports, the website clockersports.com, and the email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Man, so gotta wait a couple more days for The Last Dance. Of course, you know the review is going to be coming on Tuesday, talking about all the things that we got to see when it was time to see them. But we still have some sports news while everything is shut down, as has been the case for a while. We can talk about some of the off the court and off the field goings on that are happening. And leading off with the NBA, there's some stuff I want to talk about the NFL, and it's going to be more heavy on that. It's going to be a quick episode this time because, again, not too much to talk about. But the NFL did release their schedule. Before we dive into some of the things that I liked and disliked about the schedule, though, I do want to talk about some of the stuff of the NBA, or a couple of questions that I really had. These are not really things that I have answers to. It's just something that I kind of want to know. But we know that the Lakers in particular, a guy like LeBron James, is not benefiting at all from the NBA season getting canceled. But I want to know, is there anybody, and I've been kind of pondering this all day, is there anybody that is benefiting from the shutdown, from everything kind of stopping? And my first instinct was, okay, well, no. Because, you know, older guys are losing a year, and younger guys are losing developmental time and on the court time. Very valuable stuff, especially, you know, in rookie season. So there's no immediate beneficiary now. Possibly the young guys here, and here's why I got kind of, you know, why I immediately thought maybe the young guys could have, is that, you know, as we see when regular season starts, some of these younger teams can come out with their fresh legs and their energy and kind of steal a couple of games early on. So maybe a team that's, you know, on the bubble can flip their position and ride a hot wave into the playoffs. But I'm not necessarily sure that you're going to see any drastic change. I mean, it's possible because it's been such a long time. There's been nobody practicing together. That's the other part about it that makes it so hard to gauge who would benefit or not. You would think maybe a team that's been around together for some time, maybe a team like Boston where they added Kemba Walker, but for the most part, those guys have been there for a couple of years now. Philly's gone through some wholesale changes, and you know they got some things going on chemistry-wise. Even if they do have everybody quote unquote together, there's not a lot of positive to it. So when you hear people talking about the get back, it's because there's really not many people who are saying the benefit. Now the loss obviously is heavier on the older players because the younger guys have plenty of time left in their careers to make something happen, but you do still think that, or I still think, that it's quite possible that you could see if things were to start back up now, like I said, a young team be able to take advantage of their fresh legs, their youth, and go on a little hot streak real quick because these older guys take a little bit longer to get going. Now, the older guys, that being said, the older guys could very well be staying in much better shape during the downtime because they know how to take care of themselves, and the young guys are out here chilling, doing whatever. That's very possible too. So, I mean, there's not really I don't really have a conclusion. Again, like I said, this is just a question that I kind of had to throw out there because there's something I've been thinking about all day. Like, it's got to be somebody that benefits. I'm sure there is. The salary being saved, I guess, but, you know, everybody's taking a haircut, so I'm sure it's not offsetting it nearly enough. The other aspect about it is free agents, right? This is already going to be a weak free agent class. What does that do now? Our team's going to be trying to spend money. Our team's going to be wary of actually getting something done because you can't meet with anybody yet. We have to wait and see. Also, how is it going to affect it with the season supposedly bumping up really closely to the next season while running concurrently with the NFL season? That could get a little reckless. So I think you have to kind of step back again and be like, man, you want to kind of see the silver lining, right? You kind of want to find some way, in some way, shape, or form, this to benefit anybody because it's really rough right now, and there's a lot of trepidation about going forward with opening things back up, and I totally get it. And this is not a situation where I'm trying to promote closing or opening, either one. This is more of just trying to find some kind of beneficiary in all this. And if it's on the court, it would have to be some of the young guys. Off the court, I'm not sure that I see any way that it helps anyone unless they can get back sooner rather than later. Because the longer you hold out, is there a point where people don't come back? Right? No, right? Because they have to. We're so starved for sports as it is. You have to think that people will be here, will be there, just waiting to knock the door down once things get back going. I know the players are anxious, Nancy. But again, I just go back to that. I thought about, obviously LeBron James when he tweeted out, no one he's talked to is talking about shutting the season down. He thinks that they're still getting something going. I immediately was like, yeah, but maybe somebody's out there like, yeah, that's good. Now, Kevin Durant, that could be a beneficiary, right? He's not necessarily missing a year per se. He's not missing out on a championship run. He gets to come back if they get to start back up. There was rumors that he could get back on the court. I'm not sure how they would want to pursue that with so many variables involved in any potential restart of the season. But again, that's just one out of 30 teams, one player out of 30 teams. He and Kyrie, so two players that would really benefit from it. The Nets as an organization don't necessarily benefit from it because they're adding risk to their investment with those two players. It's just there has to be more to it. I mean, I don't know. I guess a guy who guys like Michael Porter Jr. get another chance at the Rookie of the Year. I don't know. Does that count now? He played a lot of games this year, right? That doesn't count. He doesn't get another chance. He doesn't get to go for the Ben Simmons award, the Blake Griffin award. Yeah, man, it's just one of those things that I was thinking about. We know it doesn't benefit many people. Is there somebody? Again, it could be a player like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I don't see it benefiting too many teams. A team like the Bulls has taken advantage of the downtime. They took advantage. Actually, started going back to the All-Star break when they were looking at front office people. But this is kind of a lull for them to just kind of move slowly at their own pace. With everything slowed down, they've spoken about it. They haven't had to rush any process. Hence why you have a guy like Jim Boylan still in his post. I think if the season were canceled today, he would be gone. But there's still the possibility that they try to squeeze something out of it, so they don't want to make that move now. But just actual direct beneficiaries, I don't think there really are any. And that's tough, man. It's tough because, again, I didn't expect there to be much, but I thought that I'd be able to find something other than, again, a couple of players on one team. Maybe a guy like John Wall, who I spoke about in the last episode, who was talking about his comeback potential. Maybe he would be a guy who's like, yeah, again, not necessarily missing any time because the whole thing got shut down. We'll see how that all plays out. Hopefully they can get back soon, but it's just one of those things, little, I don't want to call it food for thought because I didn't answer any questions, but it's definitely something that I was pondering. Like, there has to be somebody that could benefit. And again, if there is, I would think it would be a young team that was on the bubble, maybe right on the outside, or a team that's lower trying to get that better position because they can come out firing real quick and make things happen. Or a team with a lot of chemistry, but again, a lot of the teams have missed, like the Raptors per se. They could be a team that makes some noise. The Bucks, just because they've been together for so long, they don't really necessarily have to be together all the time to get that to kind of gel and come together on the court. So that was one thing. I talked about players moving, weak free agent class. A guy that I specifically thought about in this, a couple of guys actually, Bradley Beal, and that links back to the John Wall comments that I had just now in the last episode. With Wall coming back, is he still potentially trying to get him out of Washington? He had a really good year. He was having a really good year before things got stopped. Is he trying to stay now? Did they run it back? Is the organization trying to do any of this? Because I already felt like they were capped as it was. They didn't necessarily get better from when they had Marcin Gortat and they were running around with Otto Porter as well, and actually a threat to anybody, before we knew how fragile that whole setup was. So I'm not sure that just getting either one of or getting both of those guys back on the floor together is going to be enough, especially when every other team that's contending now has improved themselves from where they were a couple years ago when the Wizards were actually doing something. So they can probably still get to the playoffs because the East right now is a cluster, but they're not going to do much with the way they're currently constituted. And that John Wall contract is practically immovable, so their best option to bring back anything substantial is going to be to move Bradley Beal. And so, does he get moved this offseason? Like I said, with things possibly bumping up so much together, is it really feasible to move him when you're getting, it's not necessarily lesser value, but it's definitely altered value because it's not the same time frame. You might have less complete data because of the lack of playoffs. Who knows? I don't know. There's a lot of variables involved in it. But another guy that I was thinking of is Zach LaVine. And that's here with my Chicago Bulls because of the new front office and how they spoke of wanting to compete. The immediate thought is, okay, well, they're going to keep a guy like Zach LaVine. Now, that could very well be true, but also if they're going to move somebody, Zach LaVine makes the most sense as well. He's the most established player. His contract is pretty team friendly. And while the Bulls have some other guys who could probably have higher potential, more than likely, in Lowry marketing, I'm not sure you're getting back anywhere close to dollar equal value for Lowry. And Zach's timeline is a little bit more advanced than I think the rest of the Bulls roster is, even in the weakened East. So unless they package a couple of the other young guys together, and maybe a guy like Chandler with the Lowry and go get some other name, I'm not sure. I'll get into that some other episode. But unless they do something like that, I don't see them competing anywhere close to a real threat in the East. Now, they will be exciting to watch because they have a young roster. I think they have a lot of talent on that roster. I just don't know if they have a superstar player, and we'll talk about their draft again another episode. But I don't know if they're going to have anything anywhere close to. I think they'd be like an Orlando from last year, right? Where they got in, but you knew they weren't going to make it past the first round. If they win a game, that's good for them. If they win 2 games, they better celebrate because it's probably going to be done after that. But yeah, that's just another guy, Zach LaVine. And then a guy like Terry Rozier down in Charlotte. You know, he might pay them that money, but Devontae Graham balled out. Of course, they're 2 smaller point guards. You could try to run out the 2-guard system. Cleveland, sure enough, said they were going to try. You know, they got Sexton and Darius Garland there, but they could probably do a little bit better. Get some more size in Charlotte. Again, that's another contract that's not necessarily great. So that's one to keep an eye on. And then Buddy Hield in Sacramento, he had started coming off the bench in favor of, I always get it confused between Bogdan and Bojan, but that's Bogdan in Sacramento. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm 99% sure that is Bogdan in Sacramento. But they had Buddy coming off the bench in favor of him, and the Kings were actually doing well. Now, Buddy's a starting caliber 2-guard. He gets a little wild and reckless. That green light's a little bit too green sometimes, but he's still a starting caliber 2-guard. I'm interested to see the Kings, knowing how they operate, what they're going to end up doing with him ultimately, because they're going to have some decisions to make too. They got a ton of forwards down there, but I don't necessarily know if Buddy's going to, if coming off the bench is going to be something that Buddy's trying to do going forward. And then, honestly, thinking off the top, you guys start thinking about some of those younger guys, right? The Devin Bookers and guys who are on honestly bad teams. The Pelicans could honestly be looking at a team where that whole young core that they have right now doesn't really stick around. Brandon Ingram could be gone, and that is one of the guys that I wanted to kind of focus on, because prior to this season, I had said if Otto Porter plays well, then the Bulls should try to move him to some other contending team and bring in Brandon Ingram, because even as a restricted free agent, I think that he is worth the squeeze. The juice is worth the squeeze there as a point forward who can defend at least 1 to 3 and can shoot a little bit. He can shoot well enough. I'm not saying he's a sniper, but he's definitely a good shooter from the perimeter. But more importantly than that, he would be a connective tissue between Kobe White and Zach LaVine, who don't necessarily make the best decisions at all times. So I think that both of those guys are great scorers and can play together in the same backcourt, but they need somebody else to facilitate. And we kind of saw that the thought process of that with Tomas Satoransky's signing, but his lack of aggression on offense kind of hinders them, because then you know that the ball's going to one of those 2 guys if he has it in his hands more than likely. So that's something that I would like to see them maybe pursue if it's still possible. Of course, everybody knows that the draft is coming up, and I tweeted out a little while ago that the Bulls need to go ahead and try to find any way, move heaven and earth to make sure they can get LaMelo Ball, playmaking point guard who's playing in Australia right now. But there's New Zealand, but he's playing. But he's the youngest ball brother, but I think obviously the best ball brother in my opinion, just because I think that's just how it goes, man. He's been prepped for this for forever, playing against the bigger kids and running with them. His shot outside is not quite there, but his playmaking ability is, and he's doing so with lesser talent. And I think that, again, with guys like Zach LaVine, if he's to stick around, and Kobe White around him, 3-guard sets are very viable, because at 6'7", Melo is a very versatile defender as well. Now, willing is a different story all the time, but he definitely is a lengthy guy. Other options, and we'll get more into that later, but you've heard talk of Tyrese Halliburton, out of Iowa State, which would be interesting. RJ Hampton's another guy who's out there in New Zealand as well. Who knows if that works? And I'll have to. That's going to be an article I'll probably write down for Pippen Ain't Easy. But yeah, if the Bulls can get LaMelo, that'd be great. If they can't, try to get a point forward guy and Brandon Ingram. And this is obviously assuming they can find some kind of way to get out from under that Otto Porter contract that's going to weigh down. As valuable as he can be, I don't think that it's valuable enough to this team at this point to keep him around. But that's probably what's going to happen because of his injury and because of that sweet $25 million plus contract that he has, that option that he has that he's going to be taking it because he's a smart man. That's just smart business. So, I'm going to take a quick break. And when I come back, we're going to switch gears, talk about the NFL and schedule news and what that means for my hometown team, the Chicago Bears. Be right back, Triple Zeros. Triple Zeros and switching to the NFL. So the NFL released their schedule today, and we already knew the teams that everybody was going to be playing against, but we finally got the order of everything down. And week 1 in particular has a couple of games that I have my eye on, really more than a couple, because a couple is only 2, but I got my eye on 3, 4, 5. There's a handful of games. Starting off with the Thursday night opener, which is the Chiefs hosting the Texans. It's interesting because you got the Super Bowl champs playing in the Thursday night game. Now I get it, it's the opener, but dang, the Thursday night game? Like, dang, son. Now, I will say it's the old Chiefs versus the new Chiefs. Or, I'm sorry, the old Texans versus the new Texans. But, yeah, you probably could have gotten them a better slot than that. You know, it's not as jazzy for me because DeAndre Hopkins is no longer with the Texans because Bill O'Brien is determined to just prove he's Bill Belichickian in the fact that he feels like he can. It's his system more than it is any individual player, despite the fact that individual player was pretty much carrying this franchise for quite some time after they had wasted the careers of various other franchise cornerstones. But I'm a Bears fan. What can I say? Another interesting game early on in the week is the Buffalo Bills hosting the New York Jets. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because the New England Patriots, who will be hosting the Miami Dolphins same day, obviously, are without Tom Brady. So basically the AFC East is up for grabs. The Bills went 10-6 last year. The Patriots went 12-4, but they will have Jarrett Stidham. Is Josh Allen better than Jarrett Stidham? Buffalo better hope so. Otherwise, they done messed up with their draft pick. But more importantly, this is a chance for somebody else to finally take the reins of that division that we've seen dominated for the past, better part of 20 years with the New England Patriots. Can Tua make the Miami Dolphins a threat? Will Sam Darnold and Adam Gase and company, who went 7-9 last year, get a couple more wins and straighten that thing out? Who knows? But the AFC is a division that I'll be watching just because of the fact that it's going to be interesting to see who takes advantage of who becomes the new sheriff in town. A couple of other interesting games to me are divisional games. The NFL has set it up so the beginning and the end of the season are like that, hence the AFC East. But you also have here with the Vikings and the Packers and the Lions hosting my Chicago Bears. Now, why that's interesting, because the past couple of years, the Bears have hosted the Packers, and it just got the season off to the most fajangled of beginnings, and I didn't like it. And so I just had to say that I appreciate them switching it up for a change, put that juju on the Vikings, we'll let them beat each other up, and the Lions can definitely do some damage to the Bears, but I enjoy those games a little bit more. I tend to ride with the Bears every time. Listen, I know that there are some, there's always the chance, right? There's always, anything can happen, any given Sunday and whatnot. But I usually, when I'm mapping out the schedule for the Bears for their win-loss total predictions, I'm predicting a split for the Packers in most years and a sweep of both the Vikings and the Lions. Same thing this year. That's no disrespect to either one of those teams. That's just the way that I draw it up. Be that as it may, you can't count any team out, so I won't sit here and act like I am 100% confident in that prediction all the way. The Bears' schedule right now to me has about 11 wins in it. I'm not sure if they're going to get to those 11 wins, but there's definitely 11 wins there. If they're playing anywhere better, they got 8 last year with no offensive line, a horrible tight end play, and horrible quarterback play. If they can get those things together, even mediocre, that's 10 wins, I believe, right there. And some of those 8 wins, they were some of those 8 losses, they were closer than you might think at first blush. So just something to keep an eye on. Look, real possibility the Bears go 4-0, at least 3-1 in the first 4 games. Just saying, putting it out there, so now it's on record. People know that I mean what I say when I say it. And one of the things that I did notice about the schedule, though, is that they have the Saints hosting the Buccaneers, and that's a good game. That's a really good game. Tom Brady and that weaponry down there in Tampa taking on Drew Brees and his weapons down there in New Orleans. But they don't have this game on in prime time. The 2 primetime games for week 1 are the Cowboys and Rams, which is a good game. I don't mind that game at all. But then you got the Steelers and Giants and the Titans and the Broncos on the Monday night doubleheader. What? How you start off with the Texans and the Chiefs and end up with the Broncos and the Titans? Listen, I'm a Drew Lock fan. Ever since the video of him on the sideline bopping to the G's emerged, I am a Drew Lock fan, right? And they have an exciting set of weapons around him now. Tennessee made the playoffs with a very old school style, and they're going to run it back with the same group. That's all well and good. Ain't no way in hell I want to see them over Tampa Bay and New Orleans. Now, granted, that Sunday afternoon could very well be the game of the week. I would expect it to be the game of the week. But you can't not put that in prime time. Brady and Breeze in the first attempt from Tom to take the division away from the division-winning New Orleans Saints. They won it last year. The Buccaneers were 7-9. How you gonna not put that in prime? The NFL dropped the ball, man. That's all I'm saying. It's a great matchup to put in week 1, but that slot is booty cheeks. they really messed that up. I am not a fan of that. Another interesting storyline that caught my eye was reading through Twitter, scrolling through Twitter actually, but from Cameron De Silva of Rams Wire was a story of Les Snead and the Bobby Wagner rule. And it really hit home, being a Bears fan, like I just said, with Ryan Pace. And what it spoke of was back in the 2012 draft when the Rams held the position. They traded with the Chicago Bears, who ended up taking Alshon Jeffrey. It's a good pick by the Bears. But what it did was it knocked them, the Rams, out of position to take Bobby Wagner, who we all know ended up going to the Seattle Seahawks and seems to be very well on his way to a Hall of Fame career. Well, Les Snead, general manager of the Los Angeles Rams, said that they have since developed the Bobby Wagner rule. And what it is a very common sense rule of if there is a player that you are enamored with, that you really like, that you really want to take, and you like them as a player, but more importantly as a person, take the player and stop trying to get extra fancy and cute and trade down and accumulate more picks and this, that, and the third and the other. As you know, the Rams have still been trying to shuffle in and out their linebackers every now and again to figure out who they can actually get to man the middle of their defense at the second level. But Bobby Wagner has solidified what the Seahawks have, despite numerous changes around him over the past few years especially. So it's a very good rule. It took me back to the Trubisky trade where Ryan Pace traded up to move up one spot for a guy that, granted, there was some buzz around him in Cleveland, but I just don't feel like that was worthy of trading up one spot to go get with all you had to give up for him. Now, that wasn't the only mistake he made, and people want to dog him for the Khalil Mack trade, but I say in a vacuum, that trade was bonkers. That was a great trade to make. He screwed it up with the quarterback pick. Now, he could have screwed up the quarterback pick if he didn't make the Khalil Mack trade, because he could have just went right back into the quarterback market in the draft. But because he did both, it just makes it seem all the way worse. But that Khalil Mack trade is a good trade, period, point blank, 2 times on Sundays. Now, that being said, there has to be something noted by all general managers when reading something like this, because it has to have happened to everybody. That can't be unique to Les Snead. I refuse to believe that, and I would imagine it has to be Trubisky for Ryan Pace, and not necessarily the same sense, obviously, because he took the guy, but I think it's because, and he ended up the Niners, who they traded with, took Solomon Thomas, who is in the same position as Trubisky, having his option picked up and about to be a free agent after the season. it's a rare. What's becoming more common is seeing front offices admit that they made the mistake in cutting ties with the player sooner rather than later. Now, the Bears will say all the right things, that Mitch is still the starter, and that they are that Nick Foles is just here to be competition, and that they are just hoping that it brings the best out of Mitch and all these great things. But the fact of the matter is, you traded assets for a guy from out of the organization. You brought in, or you declined the option of the guy that you drafted. There's no way that anybody feels like you have 100% confidence in Mitch. No matter what you said at the beginning of all of this, remember when the offseason started, Pace sat up there in that podium and said that Mitch was the guy that he had complete faith in, and he was going to be the starting quarterback, and he may very well be to start training camp. I don't think he starts the season that way, despite what anybody says. I just don't. And that's part of what baked into my 11 wins. But anyway, but I think who was more telling was Matt Nagy and his frustration. And not long throughout the season, I've been kind of commenting on it. It seems like Nagy was holding or kind of reducing the offense, and it wasn't working still, and now it's getting frustrating because there's only so much you can reduce it to. And he kind of broke that down by saying Trubisky had to work on his ability to read a defense. Now, they're going to say, and they have said, that Foles is here to help Trubisky read the defense, but he's not going to cede. I just don't see it working that way. I don't see it working out. He can't make Mitch see what he sees. He can try to. He can help him to identify some of the key things that he reads, but there's no way he can make Mitch see it in time and then throw it with accuracy, which is another one of his issues, is getting it to happen once he sees it. There's a lot of times where he makes the right read, but he makes a bad throw. And that inconsistency is where the problem is. A lot of people say, well, he's got such a high ceiling. When he's right, and he looks great. It's just when he's bad, it looks awful. The problem is that inconsistent nature could just very well be his character. And if that's the case, then the Bears are doomed. But luckily, they seem to have identified that is a possibility, a highly likely possibility, and have gone about where they feel is a way to fix it. Now, whether it works out or not will determine whether or not I think they have a job coming next year. Some people seem to think they're more secure. I don't see them surviving if this all flames out as it is. You'll have a whole new front office and likely a new head coach and all that kind of good stuff that we get so excited about if they don't make significant improvements. Again, I think they will, but I'm just saying if they don't, house is going to be clean. That's just my opinion. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Follow me on Twitter at Josh G. Buck. Hit up the Facebook page at Clocker Sports, the website clockersports.com, and the email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Be sure to read the stuff. Pimpin' Ain't Easy for the Bulls stuff. Last Word on Pro Football for the Bears stuff. And Clocker Sports is where I will write about everything else. Until the very next time, I think you already know what that is, man. That's the sound of the horns.